Dan Muffoyd is nice enough to join us here today. And let me get my slides going here. And Dan, I've got your slides, so you can drive them, or I can drive them, whatever you prefer. But nice enough to join us today from Bosch. Bosch is new to the heat pump water heater game in the U.S. at least, so we're excited to see their product. And as we do in most Home Builders Action Council meetings, we bring various manufacturers to help home builders understand what the different products are. So excited to have Bosch on today's meeting. Dan, take it away.
Okay. Yeah, thanks a lot, Joe. And we're very happy to be here, of course. I'm here with my colleague, Jeremy, so he can also support as we have questions along the way. You mentioned Bosch is new to the heat pump water heater game. I would say we are new again. We were in this market many years ago. We exited about a decade ago. You all know, as we've learned since, the market didn't quite develop as we thought it would. We exited. 10 years later, we see the market ready to go. And we will be launching a product in July this year. And I'm here to talk to you a bit about that. But we start a little bit, who is Bosch? Joe, I guess you've got control. You can just run through slides if that's fine.
Yeah.
So you all might know Bosch. I don't know. We're a large company. So global conglomerate style company headquartered in Stuttgart, Germany. We're divided up into 4 business sectors: mobility, industrial technology, energy and building technology, and consumer goods. Most people off the street, let's say, know us from the consumer goods, our appliances like dishwashers and so forth. Bosch power tools, also consumer good. Our division is in the energy and building technology. So we have many products in that area. We can go to the next slide if you could, Joe. We're a large company, right? So last year we did 92 billion euro, 421,000 people around the world. A bit more than 25,000 of those are here in the US. And many people don't know we are a private company. We are one of the largest private companies in the world. We are majority owned by a charitable foundation. So profits, of course, go into growing the business, but they also go towards supporting education, healthcare, hospitals, and so forth in Europe, but also throughout the world, including here in the US. We can go to the next slide, which within this whole conglomerate is our division called Bosch Home Comfort, which is then also a global division within the Bosch world. If you can just jump to the next slide, Joe. So, and I was going to ask Jeremy, you can pick up this slide a little bit, because this is our product range, let's say, overview for North America. Jeremy, you wanted to say a few words here, I think.
Yeah, just in case anybody isn't aware. And by the way, I'm Jeremy Mabe. I'm the regional sales manager for the Mid-Atlantic for what we call project business, which encompasses pretty much all water source heat pumps, commercial and residential, as well as new construction, multifamily, and single family homes. So you can see some of the water source heat pumps there, but really want to point out, we do have a line of ductless splits, as well as these your typical, we call them IDS for inverter ducted splits. The big thing to know about these is they are completely inverter driven with a compressor. So super quiet. They can run from 33% up to about 110%, depending on the model of capacity in 1% increments. So unlike your traditional split systems that you have in the field where you have a single or dual stage compressor that's on off, these things, if they're run and designed correctly and sized correctly, they run pretty much all the time, and they increase and decrease the temperature of the coil to provide exceptional comfort all the time. Not to mention, as if you're familiar with Bosch dishwashers, they're known for how quiet they are. Similar thing for our condensing units. So our condensing units are as low as 56 decibels. So if you're like me, where you have I'm not going to say the other brand, with my nice, new construction home that I can't sit on the patio because it's too darn loud when the air conditioner is cut on. So, you eliminate that noise factor as well. So, just wanted to mention that. I appreciate it, Dan. I know we're here for the water heater, so I don't want to take too much time. But thank you for having me.
All right. Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. So we can move on from there, Joe, because our main focus today is, of course, to talk about heat pump water heaters. I included this slide. Perhaps it's not necessary. I learned in the introduction part that this group kind of knows what a heat pump water heater is. But for us, we have to bring this message. We're part of it, and there's other manufacturers on the line, I know as well. And all of us are out there to try to educate installers, homeowners about the benefits, which also includes a little bit how it works and take some of the mystery away. I was reading something recently from a survey that was done in Maine, where the recommendation was, don't call this a new technology. It makes people somehow afraid that it's not going to work. And this is not a new technology. This is rather straightforward, honestly. But here we have a heat pump combined with an electric storage tank, let's say. So the Bosch model uses this principle. So meaning, it's a combined system. Ours is not a split model. And so it's a vertical combined system. So if we move on, we can talk a little bit about what we call the Greentronic 7000T. So this is our model that we will launch in July this year in the US and Canada. We will launch two capacities, 50-gallon and 80-gallon. We are working on a 65-gallon as well. That will come a little bit later this year. So this product, we'll go through some of the details in the coming slides. But this product does meet Energy Star. It does meet NEA Tier 4. It is therefore eligible for these rebates we've been talking about so far today, as well as the 25C tax credit from the federal government. And if we can move on, Joe, we do talk a little bit about where should it go, which also means where should it not go. And just for awareness, especially in the new construction world, and not to make any assumptions about who knows what, but part of the principle is it puts out cold air, right? Which is a benefit sometimes of the year, not so much other times of the year. So where it's installed matters. Joe asked the question, I forget of who, but installed one in a basement. That's where we see these most likely going. In some parts of the country, they don't have basements, but a lot of people have garages. That's another easy place to put it. It can go in a mechanical closet, of course, if there's either enough airflow via louvered doors, for example, or duct. You can duct it. And so we will be offering also accessories, optional accessories that you can duct the intake air as well as the exhaust air. But in other words, you don't want it too close to the living space and putting cold air into the living space unless it's summertime in Florida, perhaps. So in terms of where it can go in the country, it can go anywhere, right? Just with the awareness that it will put cold air out. So if you're reheating that cold air in your living space, well, then that's why we mentioned here, it won't be as efficient because you'd be capturing some of the heat from the air, but then having to reheat that air. So it's not too cold. So if we can move on here. So I mentioned, there's the rebates, Inflation Reduction Act rebates, state, local, and utility rebates that vary all over the place. But this tax credit is not varying. This is also fixed until the end of 2032, which is really nice for us as manufacturers, where we have some certainty, let's say, as much certainty as one can hope anyway, that these credits will be existing for the coming years to help drive this market. We also talked at the beginning about the new DOE efficiency regulations, which will come into effect in 2029. So yes, that will also ensure that this market will take off. 2029 might seem far away, but for manufacturers doing R&D projects, it's not that far away. So we're excited that there's some certainty around that now. I would also just mention on that same topic, that update from DOE didn't hardly touch gas products at all. We'll see if that changes in coming years. At least they're still considering changes on the gas tankless side. But on electric, it's a colossal change, right? So before it was above 55 gallon, now it's really covering the mass market. And the mass market is 30, 40, 50 gallon. So the 40 and 50s will become heat pumps. Different than the rebates, because the Inflation Reduction Act rebates are tied to income level. Income level varies by region. So that's been complicated to roll out. And we expect that the state of New York will be the first to offer rebates from the IRA. They've had their program approved. We don't know when the money will start to flow, but it's getting close. So they think in the next month or two, we'll start to see the first rebates from the IRA, and that's exciting as well. If we'll go to the next slide. So the Greentronic 7000T that Bosch is bringing into the market. So certified to all these programs. So UL standards, the Safe Drinking Water Act, certified by National Sanitary Foundation. We also participate in the AHRI program. AHRI is our trade association. So that's a voluntary program, but we participate such that AHRI randomly picks one of our products out of our warehouse, sends it to a lab to confirm that what we're claiming as performance is valid. So that's a program we've participated in for many decades now. And as mentioned, Energy Star, NEA Tier 4. So it has already been certified with the UEF. We'll look at this in a moment, but just to talk about that. So the uniform energy factor on the 50 gallon will be 3.85. On the 80 gallon will be 4.10, which let's say is quite high. We're quite pleased with the performance. So with those results from a certified lab, we've listed that product accordingly with the AHRI and then onto the various programs, Energy Star, California Energy Commission, and so forth. So then we can move on a couple more slides to just give some more details on the products. So mainly the product, I mean, this is new construction discussion today. A lot of the market will also be driven by retrofit. The easiest retrofit for that is a standard electric storage tank. So both of these products have 4.5 kilowatt elements inside. Both of them have the same wiring, but then one has a heat pump in addition. So with that, we get a better first hour rating, a 20% higher first hour rating in terms of how many gallons per hour. You see the UEF, the efficiency level, 3.85, which is then driving the annual operating costs down to $114, according to the DOE calculation method. And then again, eligible for these tax credits, which a standard electric water heater is not. I found it very interesting, the discussion about some of the challenges for builders to claim those rebates. So I hope that that doesn't become an issue, because I think it's important also for us manufacturers to help drive that market. You can go to the next slide, Joe. Here, I just want to make a mention in terms of the modes that we offer. So the end user has options, right? So this product presents options of how the end user wants to manage their hot water needs. And the key point here is the different modes to select. So coming from the factory, it is in an economy mode, which is then primarily using heat pump, but sometimes backup elements. You can choose the heat pump only mode, which is a trade-off, of course. So it's the most efficient. It's also the longest time needed to heat up the tank of water. So some people will figure out a pattern, a timing that works for them and be able to use the heat pump only mode. Or if you have visitors coming and maybe you need to be running more showers, you can go to e-heater mode, which is then running the electric elements, and that's the fastest heat up time. So the point here is you do have options of how you control your water heater and finding that best balance between saving money and also having the comfort you need of how quickly you can heat up that water. There's also a button here, you see DR, demand response. So we do have a port included on the product, CTA 2045 port, so that depending on where you live, some utilities have programs to be able to use demand response, and with the homeowner's consent, to be able to control when that water heater is on and when it's off. This is important as we manage, let's say, peak demands on a sometimes overtaxed electric grid. And some places like Oregon and Washington and California on the way is the requirement of it. And I think with my last 2 minutes, just quickly, I wanted to include this, Joe. I don't know if you were planning to send slides around to everybody, because I wasn't planning to explain all of these, but I wanted to show it so that if you send it around, people have it. A couple of things that I would point out, I mentioned the 10-year warranty that we offer on the product. I would also point out the noise level, which is less than 50 decibels. So that's comparable to the dishwasher that Jeremy was talking about. And then I think it might be the last slide, just more specifications. Oh, no, sorry, I combined them into one slide. Good for me. And then here's how to reach us. So Jeremy and I are happy to take any questions you have now, but here's our contact information. You can also reach out to us at any time or forward to some of your colleagues and they can reach out. So thank you very much for the time today, Joe. I'm really happy to have the opportunity to talk about our products here at Bosch. I'm excited about getting this product to the market. We have a lot of confidence that this market will continue to grow this time as opposed to 10, 15 years ago. So just to remind, we're taking orders now. The product will start shipping in July.
Yeah, and if anybody wants more information on the inverter equipment, especially, particularly Mr. Shanks with Beezer, I know how massive you guys are. Feel free to shoot me an email, and I'll be happy to reach back out to you.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Jeremy. I think we have time for a couple questions. So folks either want to raise their hand or put them in the chat. I'll check if I missed any. But yeah, so I guess my first question is, what's the planned rollout? Is it nationally? Are there certain areas you're going to be focusing on? Yeah.
It is more than national, throughout US, throughout Canada, so not a regional approach. So starting in July, we will have the product warehoused on both coasts. We have a warehouse in South Carolina, we have a warehouse in California. And so these products will be widely available. We have, I don't know if there's any Canadian builders on the call, but we have separate part numbers for Canada. They have some slightly different standards that require different part numbers. So we do have models for the US and for Canada. But to answer your question, Joe, national rollout, let's say from day one.
Cool, great. Dean, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Purely a curiosity question. With the A2L changes happening, does that affect these, or because I noticed your refrigerant wasn't?
Exactly. No, that does not affect these. So our refrigerant is R134A, which for this type of product is not subject to the A2L requirements. We do expect, and EPA is having some discussions around it, that eventually the refrigerant for this type of product will also change. But the product we're launching in July with 134A, there's no timeline in sight for when that will have to be a different refrigerant.
Thank you.
Good question. No, it's a topic for us.
And Jeremy, are the water heaters going to be just available? Are they going to be available via retail to general consumers or just distributors?
So maybe eventually we'll go into retail. It's not our plan from the first step. So we will primarily sell through plumbing wholesale distributors. We sell other products in the retail channel. This one is, let's say, large and a little bit more complex and not DIY. So we're not going to offer it retail from step one. Might be in a later stage. I also see a question in the chat about square footage requirements. Yes, I believe it's 700 cubic feet, if I'm not mistaken. But with the understanding that if you're in a relatively closed space and it's not being ducted, the cold air will continue to cool that space, which will bring the efficiency down for the product. But as far as is it able to be installed? Yeah, if you have at least 700 cubic feet, then it can.
Great. I think we'll have somebody with a thought on that. Jeff, do you want to come on and then we'll turn it over to Ichije?
Yeah, thanks. Just briefly, Dan, thanks for doing this. Great stuff. I would encourage you to look at the amazing shrinking room. We've now tested 3 of the major brands, and they all function well down to 450 cubic feet without much efficiency loss, and actually down to 84 cubic feet. So a closet, if it's properly vented high and low. And I would encourage you to possibly change your manual to reflect that. And if you need more data, you can talk with Ben Larson, who's on the call today, and he did all the research.
All right. I appreciate that. That is something that we'll want to continue to look at in terms of making sure that our product is as competitive as anybody else's, but also not wanting to tell a story that's not true in terms of the efficiency. So thank you for that.
Appreciate it.
How do I reach Ben Larson?
Ben, maybe
I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah, great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Dan and Jeremy, for being on. Thanks so much. We will love to hear from you and other working groups in AWHI, but really appreciate you presenting to our builder working group.